Okay, so on your pink sheet, I'm going to quickly run down the answers. Yours may not be in the same order as mine, so I would say try and find the one that looks like mine, that matches yours. I remember we did some of these together, but I don't remember which ones. I remember example number 1. I feel like we did some others, but I cannot remember. Okay, so I'm just going to point to the graph, read out the domain and range. You find out on your paper, see if it matches. If not, fix it. So this number 2, the domain was from -6 to 6. The range was from -3 to 3. This number 3, the domain was from -7 to 7. The range was from -5 to 4. If I'm going too fast and you need to go back, just let me know. I'll probably go back at the end. This number 4, the domain was from -6 to 6. Range was from -3 to 2. So this 5 and this 6 look very similar, except one goes to the right and one goes to the left. The one that goes to the right, the domain was from -4 to 4. Range was from -7 to 7. And then the one that goes to the left, number 6, the domain was the same, so -4 to 4, and the range was also the same, -7 to 7. Number 7, the B that's upside down, the domain was -6 to 6. The range was -3 to 2. And number 8, this was from someone asked about that yesterday. The domain was from -3 to 3. The range was from -4 to 7. 9 was another straight line, but this one was a little longer. Domain was -7 to 7. Range was -3 to 3. Questions on any of those? Need me to go back to any of those? Say number 4. And then flip over to the back and we'll go over those. Avina. Say that one more time. 9. So you do 74.
Just
That was number 9. If you still need these, I'll go back to them after this page. I remember we did example, the number 1. I feel like we did number 2. I don't recall if we did 3. So I'll start there. Number 3, the domain was all real numbers. The range was y equals 1. 4, the domain and range were both all real numbers. So that was just the straight line with arrows. 5 was the V upside down with arrows. Domain was all real numbers. The range was everything, or y is less than or equal to 0. For 6, the domain and range were both all real numbers. For 7, it looked like a U. The domain was all real numbers. The range was y is greater than or equal to -2. And I remember we did 8 and 9 together. So I need to go back to any of these. Do we have questions about any of these? Mia, did you have a question? 5 on this one? Sabina? 4 and 6. Let me make sure I don't have any other questions on this one. Tony, did you have a question? On the other page, okay. Anyone need any others on this page? I'm still doing it. Let me know when you're finished. 4 and 6. So here's 4, and then I'll slow down to 6 in 1 second. Number 9 on this page. Number 9 is up, and then number 6 is up here. Remember that come the test, you can use that as a cheat sheet for to really look at the notation. So today we're going to do some more domain and range notes, and then you're going to have time to practice. So you should have notes on your desk that look like this. Hold on to the other 2 pieces of paper. Those will be your practice later. Right. We should probably do that. I forgot about that. We were supposed to do that first. I forgot. My bad. Okay, so quick chat. We'll do that first and then go over the notes. So translate the statement 6 less than 4 times the number. So
6 minus 4x.
So you're really close. That less than means this needs to go at the end. So it would be 4x minus 6. I saw different answers for number 2, so I'm going to work that one out. This is a cube root, so we're going to put 125 in. If you wanted to, you could put parentheses around that. When you put in this negative, you should be putting it into parentheses and putting the square on the outside. What was the cube root of 125? You can say that loud. 5. And -2 squared should have been a positive 4. If you didn't use parentheses, you were getting -4, so be very careful with that. -2 times -2 becomes a +4. -4 times 5 is -20. And -20 plus 4 is -16. Questions on that one? For number 3, you need, yeah, sorry. -4 times 5. For number 3, you needed to distribute and then combine the terms. To multiply the 8 to both of these, and remember this is a -1 that you're multiplying to both of those. So 6 plus 8 times 4 gives you 32x. 8 times -7 gives you -56. -1 times 2x gives you -2x. -1 times 1 gives you -1. Combine your like terms. Your x's give you positive 30x. 6 minus 56 is -50. And -50 minus 1 is -51. So 30x minus 51 should have been your answer there. Some of you are really close, off by 1 or 2. So just be careful with those.
I have a question.
Yes.
For the 6, oh wait, no, never mind.
I saw some different answers for number 4, so let's go through that. Here we had 2 values, so we're multiplying 3 and 4, and then 5, -5, and -3. So when we multiply those together, we have a negative outside the absolute value signs. 2 times 4 gives us positive 12. -5 times -3 gives us a positive 15. So that changes that sign. Then we can add those two together. That wasn't supposed to be negative, that's my bad. And now that there's nothing else left to do on the inside, we can just bring that down outside of the absolute value, but there was a negative on the outside. So our final answer becomes negative. What did we get for the cube root of the product of a number and 5? Oh yeah, go ahead.
15, what do you say, the thing that looks like a check mark?
The cube root?
Yeah. 3, then 5n.
Just like that. You can choose x or whatever variable you want, but because the cube root comes first, that means everything else after it is going to be underneath the cube root. The product of means I'm multiplying these two things, so you didn't need the dot in between. You can just put them next to one another. Yes.
Also the 3 is there.
Yeah, so the cube root is this symbol.
So
Questions on any of those? All right, now let's start those notes. So before we talked about the domain and range, what is the domain?
This first set of numbers in order for the x value.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna shorten that and just put all the x values. So then the range would be, Javier.
All the y values.
So keep that in mind. Anytime we're looking for domain, we're looking for all of the x's. Anytime we're looking for range, we're looking for all of the y's. So before, we were doing domain and range. So the last class, we were doing it of certain types of functions that were graphs. Before that, when we were looking at relations, we were really looking at domain and range of like random points. Those are called two different things. We didn't actually specify what they were, but a discrete function is a graph that consists of points that are not connected. So when we were doing like the relation examples, those were discrete functions. They were random points all over the place. And the graphs we were doing last class were continuous functions. So I could say it's continuous, like if it has an endpoint or arrows. If I start at one point and then I don't pick up my pencil to draw the graph, whatever it is. So this next part, I meant to white it out on your paper, but I forgot. We'll fill it in, but we're going to come back to X and Y inputs in a few units. We're not even going to touch it in this unit. But when it crosses or touches the X or Y axis, it has a y-intercept or an x-intercept. The next portion you see is not on mine because I whited it out, but the missing blanks are, sorry. When a graph has an x-intercept, this is also known as a zero, and the second blank is also a zero. So that's just saying zero, solution, x-intercepts, those are all interchangeable words that all mean the same thing. So when I made these notes, they were supposed to have more examples than I actually have. So you'll see some examples on my board that aren't on yours. We're just going to skip to the ones that are on yours. So let's do this first one. This one is a discrete function. So anytime we have discrete functions, we list out the values like we did before. Least to greatest. So what is the lowest x value?
-4.
-4. And then keep going. What would the next lowest be?
-2.
-2. Keep going.
-1.
-1. Keep going. 1.
2.
And I think that's 3.
Oh, yeah.
So list those points least to greatest. And then we're going to do the same thing for the range. What is our lowest y value? You guys can say that loud. -4. Keep going. Is there a y value at -2? What would be the next one? 2. And remember, anytime these repeat, we're not going to list them multiple times. We're just going to put it once. So what would be next?
3,
3,
4.
4. And then this bottom question is going back into relations. Is this a function? Yes. Why is this a function? You can say that, that's not- Right, so that, or you can look at, see the vertical line test. The vertical line only goes through 1 point. It passes the vertical line test. It's a function. I have to like map mine here. Not that one. Not that one. That one, yeah. Okay. So we're not going to do every single one of these because I'm going to let you practice some, but we are going to do some of these. So looking at this line, from looking at the domain, remember domain you kind of have to visualize. What would be my furthest point to the left?
Then it would be all real numbers. X. Oh, it goes all what is it? What is it?
It's going to be all real numbers, yes. That would be your final answer. But do you know what the furthest point to the left is? No. So it keeps going from negative infinity. And then the furthest point to the right is the same thing. It keeps going to positive infinity. So because it goes to both, that would be your all real numbers. What would your range be?
It would be the same.
This keeps going down, it keeps going up. All real numbers? So all real numbers again. Yep. So before, like I said, it's really easy to see that this keeps going up and keeps going down. You kind of have to visualize that it's going to keep going up and slightly left and down and slightly right. Would this be a function? Yes. I could draw in vertical lines that would not touch at more than one place. The x-intercepts or zeros and y-intercepts will come back to that. It says less than 4, but that's not correct. It'll be in another unit. But we'll come back to these, so hold on to these notes. Now let's look at this one. For this domain, I see that it's kind of repeating this pattern. And these arrows kind of mean it's going to keep doing that same thing. So what would your domain be?
What is the infinity?
It's going to both negative and positive infinity. So this would again be all real numbers. Yes, Kat.
So with the range, because we're going to assume it's going to keep this pattern, be the topmost, lowmost, bottommost?
Yes.
Okay.
So in this case, the range doesn't keep going up and down. It only goes between these 2 points. So if this helps you, draw in like a line at the highest and lowest. Those would kind of act as like your folders. And then, what is your lowest value? -4. And your highest value?
4.
+4. So sometimes you can have a domain that's all real numbers, but a range that's in between points. Or vice versa. It just depends on the graph. Would this one be a function?
Yes.
It kind of doesn't look like it, but if I drew in vertical lines, it wouldn't touch it at more than one place. So yes, this would be a function. I'm going to come down to this one. Does this one go both left and right?
No.
No. It has a stop, it has a starting point, really. So because it has that starting point and then it keeps going to the right, it's going to be everything greater than or equal to that point.
Which is -4.
Right. So x is greater than or equal to -4. If it were going the other way, to the left, it would be less than or equal to -4.
And then the range would be infinity.
Or, no, it wouldn't, because it goes up and down-ish.
Yeah. So it's going slightly up and slightly down. Very, very slowly. So yes, that would be all round numbers. Would this one be a function?
No.
No. It's probably a function at this point right here, but doesn't. I'm gonna leave that last one for you to do when I give you time to practice, if I can talk to you. Move on to the next page. We're gonna do a couple of these. Starting with this one. So this has endpoints. That means it has to be between two numbers for both your domain and your range. So again, if it helps, draw in your furthest point to the left and your furthest point to the right. You could do the same thing with your lowest point and your highest point. Domain, what would be your furthest point to the left?
-1?
So you're really close, but it's actually at 0 on the y-axis.
No.
And then your furthest point to the right?
5.
5. For your range, what is your lowest point? -3. And your highest point?
5.
So the 6? Yeah, it's actually a 6. The letters in the graph are small, and that's. Is this one a function?
No.
I heard no. And except at this point, all of these would touch more than one place. No.
And the vacuum.
Awesome. The next one we're going to do is the circle one. So again, if it helps, put in those lines to show you furthest left, furthest right, and highest and lowest. Because it doesn't have arrows, I know it won't continue on forever and ever. What is your furthest point to the left? -1. And your furthest point to the right?
7.
Yeah, it is 7. What is your lowest point? -1. And your highest point. It's at 7, yep. So sometimes they're exactly the same, sometimes that doesn't happen. Is this a function?
No.
No. It might be a little off. Sometimes because this comes from the smartboard, when I print it, it moves. Right, so you have a couple more examples in the notes that you can practice. And then you have the other sheet. It's a matching. So that kind of helps because you don't have to determine what they are. But you can also still do that. You can cut them out and glue them. Or write which one it is. But then you have to hold on to both papers. I am not collecting that. That is strictly for your practice, but you should be working on it. You can work with each other. Ask any questions you have. If you want me to check one, let me know. Use your cheat sheet if you need it. I'll be around if you have any questions, but you have this time to work.